ChatGPT, write me a watch review for YouTube about the Modern Rolex Batman GMT watch. And let me just say, this watch is like a superhero of the Rolex universe. It's got style, it's got functionality, it's ready to conquer the horological world faster than you can say, holy time-selling Batman. Look at this dark night of the wrist. Now, this review is not written by ChatGPT, but I did think it would be funny to see what they had to say. So if you're interested, look in the description. I pasted this review by ChatGPT in the description just for fun. But what I wanted to talk about was the Rolex Batman GMT in general. I wanted to walk through, everyone loves it and why, and what about this watch makes it so special. Thank you to Moyer Fine Jewelers for letting me get hands-on with the watch so that I could talk about it. And let's get into the watch. So I don't need to introduce the Rolex Batman GMT. Everyone knows all about it. This is not my watch, by the way. I have not bought one. These prices on the secondary market for this watch are insane and beyond anything that I would spend on something like this. But what I find interesting about this watch is I actually did a comparison. I'm sure you've seen it because most people that are subscribed have seen it, but I did a comparison between this and a fake version of it. And what I noticed was obviously what most people know about fake versions of watches these days, which is that from the outside, there aren't a lot of things someone that isn't into watches would notice right away. But obviously the differences are going to be in the things that matter. How does it function? How does it hold up? And more than anything, how does it make you feel? A lot of what makes watches special is how they make you feel, and this Batman is a prime example of it. This watch has a lot of feeling of the new age and the new traveler's watch. Because even the Pepsi version in the modern variant still feels like it's harkening back to the old version, but it isn't quite the old version. If you're gonna buy a modern GMT watch from Rolex, a GMT Master I should say, you're probably going to be looking at the Batman more than the Pepsi. At least a lot of people that I know are. And I think it's because of the way that it gives off more of a modern feel. It's the first one, it's different, it's unique from the GMT line. You haven't seen this color variant before in the past. And so I think all that plays into it. That the watch itself, for me, I think feels a lot better than I expected. Now, I am someone that likes older style Rolexes. Before the super case, this thinner lugs, the more slimmed down and sleek profile to the watch. But these modern ones do have a different feeling to it. It's like if you were someone that likes dress watches and then someone said, hey, try on this Panerai, that's gonna be a very different style. It doesn't make it worse or doesn't make it better, but you're gonna have a very different feeling wearing a Panerai versus a dress watch. And this is similar to that, obviously not nearly as drastic, but a similar type of thing. The watch itself does not feel svelte. It doesn't feel like, it's something that you forget about. It feels like something that's going to always be there. It feels like a very practically loud watch. Yes, there's some practicality to the fact that it's larger and more noticeable, that the indices are more visible, especially if you're someone that as you get older, you start to lose your eyesight. Some of those things are better. Having those larger indices, having those larger numerals, I think is very nice. Having the lume in the numerals is also very nice. But that doesn't mean that stylistically it's for everyone. In my opinion, I think that the variant actually works quite well. I have a preference for the older version, but I think this one is a fantastic Rolex watch. It's a fantastic watch in general. The feeling on the wrist is not exactly what I expected because it's still a thin watch. Now, it's obviously wider than the Rolexes I'm used to wearing. Not that I'm used to wearing them all the time, but my Explorer 2 mainly is the old GMT Master 2 case, and that always felt smaller and thinner and more compact and low down on my wrist. Versus something like this. It's got a larger presence, sure, on the top of my wrist, but it's still thin. It still feels compact in a way. And I think that that plays a lot to the feeling that most of these watches give us. I like a thinner profile. And while this feels wide, it feels still low down on my wrist, which helps as you wear the watch. Now, one of the things that I find interesting about ChatGPT is it has absolutely no negatives in its review. All of these seem positive. It says, look at this blue of the bezel, look at this black. Now look at it, you should admire it. It's got an oyster bracelet that's amazing. It's got a movement inside it as precise as Batman's detective skills, which is hilarious. And what I think that shows is the fact that we don't typically talk about the negatives. And there are negatives to everything. And the largest negative that comes with a lot of these luxury timepieces is the price and the availability. You can't get this watch if you walked in and wanted to buy it right now. And if you wanted to buy it and you wanted it right now, you would need to pay an insane amount of money. Even buying it from Rolex is still a lot of money. I mean, sure, a lot of us are sick and we spend too much on this stuff, and so it seems somewhat reasonable given the landscape, but it's still a lot of money. So the biggest negative in my mind is the crown. Now, I'm used to the small crown on the Explorer 2. It kind of tucks into the lug guards, and so you don't really notice it that often. You can still move it just fine, but it doesn't really stand out. This crown really stands out from the case, and I don't really like the look of it. I think I get it. It's more brutalistic and it's more industrial. I don't really know. I'm not a design guy, but that's kind of what I would classify the whole thing as. It's a lot more, you know, just metal, like raw metal, loud, masculine, whatever. And I get that it looks correct, but from a wear standpoint, that crown does kind of push into my wrist a little bit when I move my hand and articulate my hand. I prefer a little bit more of a compact version of it. I don't like the thicker lugs. I never have that much. It still looks nice on this package, but I don't like it as much. And I really, really don't like, because of how those lugs are designed and how thick they are, how much attention it draws to the fact that the side of the case ends right next to the top of the lug. So there's no like chamfer like there used to be on the old ones or on Tudors. There isn't even a smaller lug, so you don't notice the difference of metal. It's much more obvious how they did it. And I think it takes away, in my mind, a lot of the luxury feeling. It feels a little bit more like a milled block of steel. And you know, I get it, it's an aesthetic choice, but I don't like it aesthetically. I prefer something that looks like someone took their time, a little bit more like a piece of art. Not that it is entirely, but a little bit more like that. A little bit more sleek in design. Other than those minor gripes, I mean, the action on the bezel, the fact that it bounces every hour, I think is fantastic. I really like the way that that feels. It feels so polished and so tactile. The way that it feels almost like rubber bouncing from one thing to the next. And I didn't know what that was going to feel like. I thought it'd be more like a clicking motion like there is on a dive watch, but that's not the case. I think the lug guards are nice. They're fine. Again, I think they stand out a little too much, but you know, it is what it is. I think the action on the watch is fantastic. The winding, of course, is amazing. The overall setting of the hands, the way all that functions is great. You know, there isn't a whole lot you can pick apart about the watch and the function of the watch, but from an aesthetic standpoint, obviously not my major cup of tea. I prefer a smaller package, but for someone looking for a larger watch and looking for a modern Rolex, it's great. I mean, it fits what you're after. If you can get it at retail, I think it's a great package. If you have to pay secondary market prices, not so much, but again, my opinion. So what do you guys think about the Rolex Batman GMT? Did you guys like ChatGPT's review down below? It was all positive. It was very over the top, but it was funny. Give me some comments down below. Do me a favor and subscribe. Everyone that does supports the channel, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.